Hi everyone, this is Roblox1 here, and I'm here to do the pilot review of Arrow. And this segment will be I'll be reviewing the season 1 and then all the way through season 2. And will all be an in-depth review. So let's get started. Oliver Queen is a well-known DC character and is often characterized as the poor man's Batman. He utilizes many of his gadgets to rid Gotham City of its crime and corruption, whilst Oliver uses a bow and arrow to hunt down his villains. Oliver Queen has had a TV appearance before, notably the CW Smallville Oliver Queen. There is, however, a very distinct difference between the two. In Smallville, Oliver became Green Arrow to avenge his family and repent his sins. And he had a flair and wit that Arrow's version doesn't have. And also, in Smallville, Oliver seemed to have a lot more high-tech gadgets than Arrow does. As in Arrow, Oliver is literally starting from the ground up. And he only has the skills from his 5 years on the island, which is considerable, but he doesn't have that extra training that Oliver had in the Smallville version. In Arrow, he makes his arrows how Bruce Wayne made his batarangs in Batman Begins, and there is a lot of similarities with the Nolanverse Batman. Like, it's Nolanverse realistic in its characterization of Oliver. The story begins on Oliver's last day on the island, called Lian Mu, I think, which is Mandarin for purgatory. He is found by a fisherman who take him away from the island. Now, the idea that the island was purgatory is very interesting. In Catholic faith, purgatory was meant to be a place where people go to, like a prison, to atone for their sins. And Oliver states very early on that he has a lot of sins to atone for. Some of them on behalf of Robert Queen, some of it on behalf of himself. Robert Queen states that he has failed Starling City, and that he committed acts that ruined the lives of his city. Oliver has to atone for that, as well as the death of Sarah Lance, who is Diana Laurel Lance's sister, whom he was dating. Oliver's life, how he used to be, and he was a very typical playboy, very irresponsible, and didn't take responsibility for his actions. And we see that he becomes, in the present, this very damaged character in the beginning of the episode. Oliver is pulled into his old life and appears to be having some traumatic appears to have had some traumatic events from the island. And he has these scarrings on his body, fractures and burns. He's very damaged, in a way that Bruce Wayne wasn't. Like, this character has literally been pulled into the gutter and has had to take a lot of damage to his body. And I felt in Batman Begins, this wasn't really shown. His family welcome him home, and they both try to adjust to life being different. Something that Thea and Oliver notice. Thea at one point says that she changed when Oliver and Robert died, and she too went through the emotional pain of losing her family members. Traumatic events change people, as many people who fight PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, know. And it's a very serious illness that can take years of therapy for people just to readjust life. And Oliver is hiding this behind a mask, and is hiding his experiences on the island, and using these skills as the Hood or the Vigilante, as he fakes being the Oliver that everyone knows and loves. So he's hiding his pain behind this front, which is very, very similar to Batman in Batman Begins. However, separating that just a bit, in Batman Begins, Batman's facade was less about concealing his pain and more about creating a front that people wouldn't be able to tell that he was Batman. Whilst in Arrow, Oliver's facade hides his pain and the abuse that he had on the island. And as he's faking the Oliver that everyone knows, Oliver is struggling being at home, and we see in a scene where Moira is grabbing onto Oliver's shoulder as he stares out blankly at the rain. Moira grabs him, and Oliver immediately snaps and puts her on to the ground. And, Oliver still believes that he is on the island. Oliver is also forced to face Laurel, who is angry because Oliver slept with his sister and she then died as a result. And it brings a very, very realistic consequence for Oliver's actions. And I think viewers can appreciate the honesty thanks to the flashbacks. But Oliver really, really does feel sorry. Like, when he says sorry, he means it. And he is treated very harshly by Laurel, Detective Lance, and Thea. Like, they all treat him very, very harshly. Which is a little unfair, as Oliver never asked to be stranded on an island. And he never wanted Sarah to die either. And yet those are the sins he has to face. Another interesting side note is Thea's nickname, Speedy. And when people heard that Thea's nickname was Speedy, there was many a fan speculation that Thea would become Speedy at some point. But now with the introduction of Roy, it's now a little bit questionable that who will become the first Speedy. Another mystery is Moira Queen, Oliver's mother, who hired a hit on Oliver to find out what Robert told him. The first episode is a great watch, and I really do recommend this TV show to everyone. And it's a great introduction to the Green Arrow mythology. So thank you very much for listening to me, and I shall be back with another review for you all. Bye!